Mystery Brothers. Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers. Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery
Mystery Brothers.
All right. So, this is now episode 17
Yep.
of Mystery Bros. Hell yeah,
We're
dude.
getting up there, baby.
Oh yeah. This episode, we've got some interesting topics. We're gonna start off and we're gonna talk about Easter Island.
Yes,
And
definitely.
the mysterious, what is it?
Moi statues.
Mois. Yes, all those statues that they have on Easter Island. We're going to go kind of into, we'll talk about them. We'll talk about what we know about them. We'll talk about, theories of where they came from,
Yeah.
blah, that kind of stuff. And then for the second half of the episode, we're going to split this one in two because both of these topics, there's not a ton of information on, so
Right.
we're just kind of split them in two like we do sometimes. And the second half, we're going to talk about simulation theory, which is that one is
We're gonna go deep.
yeah, strap in for that one because it's that one's interesting. We will admit that a lot of it is, almost everything we talk about there is pretty much like theoretical and just kind of hypothetical, and it's a lot of like philosophical stuff
Yeah.
that we're talking about. We will admit we just kind of go deep and ask some crazy questions and stuff, but like overall it's an interesting topic, so we decided to talk about it. But yeah, just a pre-warning, we get a little crazy and deep on that second half there. So we are going to talk about Easter Island and the Moi statues there and just kind of go into that. And then we'll get into simulation theory. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So when you talk about Easter Island, it's a small island that's kind of in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's a territory now of Chile.
Okay, Chile.
How you like to say that? Chile.
I think it's pronounced Chile.
Chile.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I've heard that Chile is really nice.
Yeah.
Like it's not the richest country, like there are a lot of like impoverished people there. But overall I hear it's a pretty nice country and there's some cool cities.
I also heard that. Did you ever notice like one of the top military videos they released from Chile was like a UFO video that wasn't explained. It was like 4 years ago they released something, and it was like the first time a government, like Chilean government released a UFO video.
Really?
And they couldn't explain it, so they just asked for help. Like, could anybody explain what this is? And no one could explain it. No one could explain
I
it.
did not see the video. Was it cool? Did you look at it?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Does it look like a UFO?
Yeah, what it does, like they've tried to, like it let out some stuff and it like moved around, and the Chilean government, the military, like let out because like they said, we've had top experts look at it. We can't figure out what this
figure out
is.
what it is.
So like they asked like anybody in the world if they could help
That's
out,
cool.
and no one's been able to solve. Like the theories that have come close, they've tested, but it does not look like it is in the video. Like nothing comes close to that. So it's pretty interesting.
Interesting. That's cool. I did not know that Chile had some scandalous UFO stuff. Not really scandalous, but some juicy UFO videos. I got to check that out after this.
Great. Getting back to kind of our main story here.
Yeah, so back to Easter Island. Easter Island is a territory of Chile.
Yeah, it's actually one of the.
It's kind of off the coast, right? I mean, like I said,
No.
Chile is like the entire. No, not like right off the coast, but it's like
No, it's deep.
it's way in the
So
Pacific.
Easter Island is one of the most remote inhabited islands in
Wow.
the world.
Interesting.
It's in the world. It's the most remote island in the world.
Really?
Yeah,
The most remote island in the world.
the most remote island in the world.
Holy fuck. It's small too, right?
Yeah,
It's only 62 square miles?
correct.
Yeah.
So like the nearest inhabited land is around 2,000 or should I go 2,075 kilometers away, or 1,289 miles away from the next
Wow.
closest island, and that island is very small. At the moment, it has like a population of 50 people.
Holy shit. That's like North Sentinel Island shit. That's tiny. 50
Yeah.
people. How does an island like How do you live on an island with just 50 people?
I guess it's like a nice tropical island. Just like you just got beach to yourself and
Wow.
just yeah.
So Easter Island, I saw the population is about 7,500, like 7,500 people.
Yeah, right now.
That seems like a lot for an island that's only 60 square miles. Right? Is there like any cities on the island or anything?
No. They say the nearest city is 2,000 or like 2,606 kilometers away or 1,619 miles.
Holy shit. I wonder how these people live. How these 7,000, that's a pretty big, it's a lot of people, in my opinion,
Yeah.
for an island that small.
Well, nowadays they
Are
have
they
like
like
ships.
tribal? Or
No,
are
this
they-
is like
they have houses and shit?
this is like a regular civil. Like
It's an actual
the
civilization.
old
like,
people that made these statues, they're mostly not. Their culture's kind of been. A lot of them were later used for slaves by the Spanish and stuff like that. So the culture's like there's definitely still some inhabitants left from that place, but most of them are now like from everywhere.
that's crazy how you live. I bet you that like gas there is probably super fucking expensive. I bet you food and everything there is like
Yeah.
super expensive because it has to be like exported, unless it's like, or imported, I mean.
They probably
Unless
have like a
it's-
ship once every fucking 3 days or something.
Yeah, right. Like, unless it's stuff that they can make on the island, you know, like, I don't know. They probably have like cows and sheep and stuff on the island that then they get meat that way and stuff. But for 7,000 people, they're going to have to definitely import stuff.
So like the cool thing about Easter Island is obviously the Moai, which has like captured the world.
Yes.
And how these statues have been built.
It's baffled people for a long time.
Right. So these statues like have baffled people. Like they look so good. Like, and they're kind of like weird shaped heads too. They're like eggs. I don't know, like longish heads, small neck. They don't have much. They don't show anything else. It's kind of just like shoulders, small head, and a huge head.
Yeah, it's mainly just like their heads and like their faces are just really big and long. And there's a lot of them, right? Isn't there like 900?
There's so many of them,
Yeah.
and they're all in different stages. Like so they were built from volcanic rock, which is kind of easy to chip away from. And they kind of figured out how you could chip it. They've proven how you've been able to create how they kind of look.
Okay.
No one knows why you kind of make egg-shaped people.
So it's not a mystery how they were made, right? Like we
No.
know how they were made and stuff like that. So this isn't like the pyramids where it's like we have no idea how they made them. Like,
No.
we know they made it out of volcanic rock and you know chipped it and stuff like that. But the mystery is how they moved them around.
how they
and
moved
stuff,
them
right?
around, right?
The crazy thing about them is just how enormous they are, and for like what we believe that it was like Polynesian people between the years 1250 and 1500 AD is when they were made. So like back then they didn't have like any sort of like technology, really anything that could like help move these things, and they just have no idea how they were placed and moved and stuff like
Right.
that. Maybe they were like, maybe they were just there and they just had, the rocks were just there and then they just carved them like out of, you know, and just left them there. But a lot of times they don't think so. Right.
No.
But yeah, so like,
And they have like red clay hats, some of them too, and they don't know how they got them on top of that.
yeah. So like we said, there's over 900 on there, and the tallest one is 10 meters or 33 feet high, and that one weighed 82 tons. Okay, so that is insane.
Right.
Extremely heavy. That wasn't even the heaviest one. The heaviest one, it was a little bit shorter than that one, but it was like, you know, kind of stockier. So it weighed 86 tons. All right, which is
Wow.
insane. Now it says that there was one that was unfinished, but if it was completed, would have been about 70 feet tall and weighing about 145 to 165 tons.
Wow.
Insane.
It's just insane. And so they've proven how you can maybe move the statues. Like they've done the log theory where you like place logs on top of each other. I mean, the Rapi Nui people said that they walked to their place, and so you'd like, okay, well, they obviously didn't walk through the place. Like, that's a lot of help. That's a lot of help.
That
Like,
was their explanation. They just walked to wherever they were supposed to be. And just chilled there.
They just walked. That's in their legend. Like, if you ask, like, one of their surviving members, so how did they get over there? They're like, yeah, legend says they just walked there.
So the people that built them. Talk about the people that built them a little bit.
Yeah, so the people that built them was basically like a primitive culture. They didn't even really have like a written language. A lot of it's just like passed down from what we know from their culture.
Okay.
And the stories of what we heard.
They're kind of like Polynesian, right?
Yeah,
like
they're Polynesian people. Yeah,
Polynesian.
They probably like
Pacific Islanders, you know.
Also, well, we have to realize, like, how would they even get to this island?
Yeah, right. People, even the fact that people were even on this island is interesting back then. I mean, people have been on, there's been islands for a long time, but it's like, someone had to first get there at some point, and then just like stay there. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so people just like kind of rowed over, maybe just like rowed aimless. Dude, do you think they just didn't know where they're going, just like gonna row somewhere?
Well, it probably had to be people from like Hawaii or like or New Zealand or something like that, right? Like
so far away. Yeah, Polynesia.
New Zealand isn't. Yeah, it's super far away, but like it's probably close to, or any of the like the islands up by like Indonesia and like Papua New Guinea, like all that kind of stuff. Possibly like from islands
they're all
out there.
still like 1,600 miles out. Like,
yeah, they're
what
still
makes
so
you
far.
What makes you go 1,600 miles in a direction where you have no idea where you're going?
Think it might have been like an accident. You think they were just like?
I'm just kind of curious. I'm just kind of curious, like how you get to
so
that
no one
island.
really knows how people got to that island, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first European contact was in 1722 on Easter Sunday. So that's how it's got its name.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering that, like why it's called Easter Island. Okay.
Found on Easter Sunday. His visit resulted in the death of about
Stop moving so much.
a dozen islanders. And he ended up wounding many others. So he was like kind of aggressive. They're Spanish.
Not a good first impression.
Yeah.
Who was it? English?
No, the Spanish.
Spanish? Okay.
Yeah. And they're the first people who like wrote that they're like, holy shit, like look at these statues. They were amazed when they were on the island. They wrote journals like, what? They were captivated.
When the Spanish saw them?
Yeah. So it's interesting because like after that period, when the Spanish went back, or actually this time like the English and Spanish kind of traded off coming back then.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the statues were knocked down.
Oh.
And they think, well, why'd they? And it looks like from like with the evidence of archaeologists can look at that they weren't this would then naturally just fall down, like they were purposely pushed down.
Okay.
And they're wondering why would the Rapa Nui want to do this? Well, a lot of people think, well, to them, they've probably never seen a white person in their fucking life. Like,
yeah,
they could have just been aliens to them. It's basically aliens because they've never. The theory goes like why they knocked them down is because they've never seen anybody else. All they know their whole entire life is that island and nothing but that island. And these gods were meant there to protect those the islanders, and they obviously weren't protected when these Spanish came and did whatever they want. So a lot of them like that for them that was like deja vu. Like what are you talking about? They were angry at their ancestors.
That they were frustrated that they thought that those statues were to protect them, and then when the Spanish came and just murdered a bunch of them, they were like, "Fuck you guys!" Like, this was all bullshit, and then pushed them over.
Yeah, that's what they think. That's what they
but no one knows for sure.
No one knows for sure. But that's a good. I mean, it's a plausible theory because to them, like they've never seen anything else. They don't They're like, wow, and they weren't friendly, so.
Yeah, a whole lot of help those statues were. That's what they thought.
Yeah, so they were just basically there for the statues. So and then later on, which kind of dampened everything for the culture.
Stop moving.
Is in the 1800s, a lot of the population was Peruvian slaves.
Ooh,
They were sold into slavery.
really?
Yeah, so that's kind of ended their culture and kind of moved them into chaos and a lot of but you have to notice by then the population was very low. It was 3,000 people. At its peak, they say there was over 12,000 people living on that island.
Wow. When was this?
This was back in like between 12 like in their peak when they were making all the statues.
Okay.
And they're wondering why all these people just left the island. It's a huge mystery. We still don't know why the population shrunk so much.
Well, didn't they get taken for slaves, or is that before that it started?
That's
to shrink?
before
Okay, so even before that,
Yeah.
the population was starting to shrink.
Yes.
Did they do like sacrifices, like human sacrifices, maybe like that type of stuff, or I don't know.
Well, we don't know.
Maybe they just stopped having so many kids or something.
There's a theory that the log theory is that there are like many tribes on the island. They're not just like one big tribe.
Okay.
And that a lot of these tribes are like fighting to make the bigger statues.
Oh. And they would fight each other?
No, the theory would go that they cut down all the trees so they could move their statues, and then they cut down all their like lush forest.
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah. That kind of seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Another theory is that they just like over farmed, used it for cattle too much, and then let the trees grow back up, that they were forced to leave the island that way. But they've like looked at other islands, and that didn't happen on other islands, so like they thought,
Yeah.
that seems a little weird. That's also a huge mystery of like what happened to these people. A lot of people think maybe it's the climate change. We really don't know, but that's a huge mystery.
And they didn't really have like a written language or anything, right?
No.
Like, so they don't have any records or anything of like stuff that was going on. No pictures, nothing.
No.
Damn. So they're just kind of lost, huh? They're just gone forever. Lost civilization.
We don't know exactly what happened. They had this ritual on the island. There's like a small island off Easter Island, very small, and you'd place an egg there, and they'd have a competition. The guys would jump off a cliff, and whoever get the egg first and bring it back would like win. Like that's a huge prize.
Okay.
All right. So the big mystery is like how they moved these statues, because
Yeah.
we obviously know they didn't walk into place like legend says.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, they kind of know how they were made, and that's not really that big of a mystery. They're carved out of like the volcanic rock and stuff like that. But like I was saying earlier, some of these weigh like, 50 tons, 80 tons, the one, you know what I mean? So it's like, how did they get them to these spots?
Yeah,
Because they believe that they weren't just carved in the spots that they're at, right? Like they're pretty sure that they were carved off site and then moved to where they're at, right?
Yeah, they had one location from the ship. They've actually experimented. They pushed them down. A lot of them are still in the motion of getting pushed down. And then the others, and that's where they came from, and that's where they like moved them around the island from that one central location.
Okay. So they know where they all kind of came from within the island, and they're spread out all throughout the island. So that's the mystery: is how the fuck did they move these things back in 1200 AD?
Yeah.
Right?
So the log theory was tested in 1974. You just basically put a bunch of logs in front of each other and just like kind of
Roll them.
Yeah, rolled along, and it tested it could work.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. People are a little skeptical that they use that because there's not like many logs. Like just they could have just rotted away, but there's not many evidence of just like logs
So
scattered
basically,
around.
like they get 10 to 20 logs, and they like lay the statue down on the logs, and then push it on the logs, and just keep moving. The last log to the front every time, right? And kind of just it's like a moving wheel thing, I guess, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a way to move heavy stuff back then. I'm sure that's the way they did.
But
things.
like this is a primitive culture. They didn't like the wheel. They didn't even know what the wheel was.
Yeah. I mean,
so you could just figure out that you could just move log. Like I don't know how they came up to that.
I think it's possible. No,
it could happen.
Yeah.
We don't know.
they're not stupid, you know. They figured out how to carve these cool statues and stuff. Now I think
Right.
they could figure out like, hey, if we put it on a log, logs roll. You know, I think they figured that out. So it's like, I don't think that's too crazy.
No, that's why like a lot of like for the longest time they were trying to figure this out, and then after like the log experiment, they're like, okay, I think that's how they did it. But now they've done some more research, and they said they might have actually stood them up, and they actually did walk. It would help the theory. Like, so you'd have ropes on both sides, and someone would stabilize it, and then you kind of pull on one side, pull on the other, and it kind of walk.
I see.
So that's maybe how they did. So it proves the walking theory.
Okay, so maybe when the people were saying that, hey, they walked to where they wanted them, then maybe they meant like that's the way that they moved them.
Yeah,
They,
because it looks
pulled
like
on
the
each
walking.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've proven they could do that. But the big mystery is like, okay,
How many people would it take to like
like for the big
move
ones,
them like that though?
we
That
don't.
just doesn't seem like the smartest way to do it.
Yeah, so that's why they're not sure about that theory either. Like again, can't be proven, right?
Log theory seems like the smartest way to do it, you know? And it seems like it wouldn't be that hard. You'd probably only need like 10, 15 logs per statue, right?
Right.
I don't know, but some of them are so fucking heavy. I don't know. You'd have to get some big ass logs.
Yeah. But okay, it's cool that you moved it. How do you get it standing up?
Yeah, that's one thing about the log theory, though, is you would have to stand it up separately somehow.
Yeah.
If you did the walking thing, like they said, it would already be stood up when you got it there, though, right?
Right, but again, how they get it to stand up?
In the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I don't know.
That's still a mystery to them. I guess they've like said maybe if you like prop it up with a log, that's still a hard thing to explain how they got them to like.
Because if you used a rope, that still would be really tough. Like you'd have to have.
especially 80 tons. Like how many people do you need for 80 tons?
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Maybe you put like logs underneath and you I don't know. Yeah, so like they kind of lived like the Native Americans, maybe not even that advanced, like with the housing and everything. So
Yeah, it was very tribal.
yeah, it's very
and,
tribal lifestyle. So it's a huge mystery, and these big red domes that they put on.
Yeah, that's right. They also had some of them. The Moai had like these hats, kind of that they carved separately. That they put on top of them, right?
Archaeologists like put on their like thing caps because like they don't know how they put these hats on top of some of these colossal statues. So they were carved in rock and like you know some of them are 33 feet high, like 10 meters high.
Wow.
And some of the hats weigh up to 13 tons.
Wow. And they somehow got those
On top.
of the fucking.
And they know that they weren't
The
built.
Moai.
Yeah, they weren't put. They were nicely crafted together, but they weren't moved together. They've known that.
Wow.
How do you get them up there?
That's
With a crane?
That one's interesting.
With a crane,
They didn't have fucking cranes.
or
Like
maybe
a pulley system.
a theory thinks like they got both on logs, right? And they just kind of like just placed it on like when they like barely lifted, placed it on, and then it got up.
Okay. They still don't know how the fuck they even
Yeah.
stood these things up. So
Right.
like, so there's a lot of mysteries here, like how
But
they moved them. To be honest,
and they've known that some of these red size like caps were put on statues later on.
yeah, they know that for a fact, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a lot of mysterious stuff that we'll never know the answer to because all the people are dead or became slaves or whatever. You know, anyone who probably could tell you about it. Even when like the Spanish came like way back then, they never asked like how you made these, or they did. Is that when they told them they walked there?
Yeah, I think that's
When they were just like, yeah, they just walked there.
legend has it because
Okay.
this is 17th century now, so this is 500
So they were
years.
made, even hundreds of years even before.
Yeah,
that.
this was like
Okay.
500 years before that. So
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of maybe even some of them, dude, they didn't. I don't know. Maybe
they probably didn't even know.
yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think that the moving them is that crazy. I I don't see anything. I don't see why the whole log theory is so insane. Like, I think that's been a mode of transportation that people have been using for like thousands of years.
Right.
I don't think that the log thing is that crazy. So that's something. But then how did they stand them up? And then how the fuck did they get those hats on top of them? Those 13-ton hats that they built separately and they put them on there somehow. That stuff's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Some of the
let's get into the real theories.
like the logical theories, right?
Yeah. Let's get into the actual theories.
Yeah. So one of the theories goes that the whole culture thing where they like got the egg from the small island. Mm-hmm. It's like it's like a tradition because the gods came down in this egg-shaped craft, right? And it landed on that island, and it landed on that small island, and the gods helped them create these statues to help them protect the island.
By gods, we mean
aliens.
Aliens, baby.
Right. And that's like the whole, what a lot of people believe. The egg traditions thing is actually an alien craft. They help them make these statues, like help them transport it with whatever fucking shit they transport it with. Some like,
anti-gravity shit.
Anti-gravity, just moving it across the island. Like,
yeah. I mean, this one is interesting. I mean, again, of course, there's no evidence or anything because why would there be? This one's a little different than like the pyramids and stuff, though. Like these aren't as amazing as the pyramids. You know what I mean?
No.
Like there's not like insane like mathematics and like geography and like all that kind of stuff like involved in these. These are just some like really tall, like heavy statues,
right? And
they were made way later than the pyramids were made.
Right.
So it's like. Obviously, people are going to talk about aliens because it's a mystery, and anytime there's a mystery involved, aliens come in. But I don't know about this one.
And then
I think that those are very possible. Like it's very doable that like humans made and moved those. But anyway,
yeah. So another theory is that Rapa Nui chieftain, like all of a sudden, they had this one religion that they always devoted them to, but all of a sudden, this Birdman came into no one knows what this Birdman was. He said to come flying down. And
this is like part of their legend.
This is part of their legend.
How did they have this? I thought they didn't have like a written like language or anything.
I know, but this is passed down from centuries.
Oh, just like stories told. Okay.
And they've actually like found carvings. They've like made some carvings that like kind of show. So basically they had this one, way of thinking, like the religion was based off one thing, but then after this Birdman came, which they made like some like drawings of and every stuff, and like people say like, yeah, that was the Birdman. Their total religion completely switched. Like they were all now praising the Birdman, and scientists don't have the explanation to why the Birdman all of a sudden just became so important, why we just switched religions like that.
Okay,
so that's a big mystery that they can't explain.
That's interesting. So at some point in their history, we noticed that there's this Birdman creature.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, they're all praising this Birdman creature and all that. It's crazy.
The Birdman came like, that's what they devoted their life to, the Birdman. Okay.
They think that could be an alien.
So aliens do say, hey, that's an alien.
Hey, that's interesting, Who's the Birdman? Where did he come from?
And there's also, if you go under the island, there's like a lot of caves and stuff like that.
Underwater caves?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And they've actually done like a documentary on expedition. So they found drawings of what looks to be like small humanoid big faces. Same drawings as on Nazca, like the same alien shaped human that you can find on the side of a mountain. Is drawn on Easter Island.
Where's this mountain at? In Chile?
In Chile.
Okay. Wow.
So like, wow, how they make these similar faces? Like, what prompted them to do that?
Yeah. And those, technically Easter Island is part of Chile right now, but like they're thousands of miles away, right?
Yeah.
It's like over 1,500 miles from Chile. So back then, that's not an easy trip.
No.
So yeah, that's interesting. How did they both share the same?
Yeah. I mean, they're over 3,000 miles apart.
Over 3,000? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Between Easter Island and Chile?
Yeah.
3,000 miles?
It's
Holy
like,
fuck.
The island's like in the middle of
Wow.
like nowhere. 2,182 miles away from
Wow.
Chile. So that's like a far distance to have two similar drawings.
Yeah, from back
Different,
then.
and from different cultures. Like the Nazca's a different type of culture than the people on Easter Island were. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
They've also
The ancient astronaut theory is really, really interesting, man.
always interesting.
There's so many like similar like pyramids and drawings and accounts from so many different ancient civilizations that had no contact with each other or lived like thousands of years apart or thousands of miles apart that all like talk about very similar things. And that just the ancient astronaut theory is very interesting.
Right.
There's a lot there. You know, maybe we should do a whole episode on just that.
We could.
We should.
We're gonna be made fun of. Like
Eventually,
we're gonna be called crazies. You're gonna be called fucking out there people.
Well, those people just don't do the research. Those people just don't care. They just don't. They're just boring, stupid people that just believe everything they read in their history textbook from high school. So fuck those people. You know,
Yeah.
I think Christopher Columbus was a great guy.
Dude, Christopher Columbus, dude, Robert E. Lee, man,
Yeah, they
the
just,
boy,
No, wait, was Robert E. Lee the Confederate or the?
the Confederate.
Oh, he was. No, he sucks. No, Ulysses S. Grant. He's
Yeah.
the Union guy. Yeah, no, Robert E. Lee sucks.
But
But
anyway,
I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
you know, people are like, "Oh, that's so crazy and stupid." It's like, well, you just haven't looked into that, dude. You don't like.
there's just a lot of unexplained
There's
mysteries.
so much
yeah.
interesting stuff, and like, you just believe whatever mainstream science tells you, and mainstream science isn't always right, man.
No,
It's
definitely
just
not. So, what's
They're out there, man. The aliens are out there.
So it's very interesting when they've started to explore these caves, because these are fairly recent that like people have started really
They found these caves and stuff.
started going in deep and find them.
Are they like underwater caves, or are they just like in the side? Like what?
No, they're like they've done rituals. Like people, they found human bones out there. They've done
Oh,
rituals
wow.
and stuff, sacrifices. But what's very interesting, they found some strange looking bones that like some claim don't look human.
Oh.
They even like took a camera crew down there to show them like you can tell that some of those bones look like a little odd and stuff.
Okay.
But however, the government won't allow anybody to take anything off the island, or it's like a preserve spot, so like nothing can be taken, nothing can be. So all you can do is take pictures of it. The government refuses to do any.
They can't even just take a tiny little sample
They-
or something to just do a
it's
quick
all
DNA
protected.
test or something.
All protected.
Dude, fuck that. Come on.
That would
That's
be
just like
interesting.
how like the Egyptian government won't let anybody look at like what's under the fucking Sphinx or something. It's like, come on. This could be like
yeah.
huge advancements in
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could be like nothing. You could have ruined the Sphinx forever, but still.
you'd be able to fix it. Like, come on. But this one's even dumber. It's not like all we would need is a tiny, like probably like the smallest sample ever of a bone. That's all you would
Right.
need. Nothing would even be ruined or anything.
I think maybe they have done some DNA. There's nothing that's allowed to be taken away. So maybe they have done some DNA testing and they haven't really found anything strange, but they aren't able to move these structures, these bones.
Mm,
So at the moment, it looks like they're trying to work an agreement to get it DNA tested. But
okay.
at the moment, it's like a sacred space because that's where they've done a lot of sacrifices. A lot of debunkers will just say it's just human bones. They just look a little odd, a little strange. So they're
What's
kind of
strange about them? Do
they have like
say?
elongated skulls.
Oh. But those are,
Yeah, again, there's it's not saying it's alien. They just look odd. And so
I see.
we'd like to know for
It's
sure.
probably not. It's probably just
Right. They just look a little
skull- like
strange.
bones from
Yeah.
way back in the day or something. But that's crazy that they have like the same kind of drawings and stuff as
Yeah.
other civilizations that were thousands of miles away from them.
Right. And the mysterious Birdman.
Yeah,
That's pretty interesting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is interesting. The the actual moai and how they were moved and stuff, to be honest, I don't think it's that crazy. I really think like they probably just moved them on logs. How they stood them up, you know, I mean, the tallest one, like we said, was only about 33 feet. There's there's ways.
How?
Using like rope and stuff, there's probably a way to like have one person tied over here, one person over here, both tied, and then they both just like pull it up or something, you know. I think it's possible to do that. They would need a lot of people to be able to pull it. That's for sure, to be able to get it to stand up. But, you know, like if you had one rope that was tied to it, two ropes that are tied to it, and they both kind of went out in like a triangle and pulled in the same direction to like lift it up, I think you could do it that way, right? If you had a strong enough rope and strong enough people.
Right.
So that's not insane to me, but it's interesting that we ended up talking about the ancient astronaut theory, and there's a lot of, you know, cool stuff about Easter Island that has to do with that. That's interesting.
And then how it lands on like the, they say it is a great spot for electromagnetic field, and that's somehow
that whole stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And they say that some even will go out there and say that Easter Island was a genetic experiment.
Really?
Yeah. That they were so isolated.
Like a genetic experiment for aliens? Like they were
and then they just like took most of their population away because they were deformed or stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really behind
explains
that,
how they got dinosaurs. Yeah. Hey, it's a really easy explanation of how Easter Island went from like a huge civilization to like 3,000 people.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, they just went through a portal. Like, duh.
And the whole thing about the electromagnetic stuff, that just kind of means that's something that people like to say that like that attracts like alien activity.
Yeah.
That's why, like, the same thing about the pyramids, like they're in a geographical spot where, like, you know, there's a lot of electromagnetic energy, that kind of thing.
Right. So that's what they're saying. It's a hot spot.
Yeah.
But I think the mystery for them is mostly like these primitive people were able to make these gigantic
things and move them and place them in certain ways. Yeah. And of course, we'll never know. It's Mystery Bros. We'll never know how exactly they did it.
But I'd love to hop into a fucking time machine ASAP, dude.
And check it out.
Check it out, dude.
There'd be a lot more things I'd be doing, though.
I know, definitely.
I'd for sure be going to ancient Egypt first. But
would you eventually get to it?
Eventually, yeah. But it wouldn't be in the top of my list, you know. There'd be a lot of other things I'd be checking out first. But yeah, so I think that's about it for Easter Island.
Right.
This one's interesting. I liked it. Now we're gonna get into simulation theory. Now, warning here. We're gonna go on some tangents here. We're gonna talk about some very theoretical ideas. We're gonna get kind of philosophical. There's not really a whole lot of like facts about this theory. It's just kind of, you know, it's a really interesting, crazy theory that we're going to talk about. And then, you know, we'll talk about like the computing needed, that kind of stuff. Yes. And that stuff we can get into like actual like facts and numbers. But other than that, we're going to get real deep here.
If you're big in the Matrix, this is for you, man.
Yeah, it's still a super cool idea, and man, it's crazy, and you know, it's super fun to talk about. So we're going to get into that now.
So like if you think about the first like people who came up with the theory of computers, and that we could maybe be inside of the computer simulation, was by Ren Desart and later by Hans Moravec. They've described that, like, you know, in the last years, like in the 1980s, the first video games came out, and they were like Pac-Man. Think how far we've come in the last 30 years with video games.
When did he come up with this theory?
So this is back in 2003.
2003 was the first time that...
Yeah. Or like the first time like these people have made it well known, and this is what kind of like... People have made it well known, and this is what their argument is for simulation theory. So the theory goes like, all right, so like in the last years, we've made advancement in technology. Like think of the first video games you played. Think about like how realistic they look in 2020.
Video games were around before I was even born. You know, they video games came out in like the 80s, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So and it was just like Pong or like Snake and shit, and then like yeah.
In the last 40 years, we've done some incredible things with video games. Like now we have like VR.
Yeah.
Like you can go like inside, like not pretty much,
And
but
the new
like
graphics on the PlayStation 5 look fucking crazy.
yeah. So just think about like how advanced it would be in 1,000 years, or like 5,000 years, or
Right.
a million years. Like
Yeah.
how far advanced we go. So there's like two theories like why we wouldn't do this. One theory is we would never make it that far. We destroy ourselves. Like we get extinct.
Hold on. So they're saying that like since in 40 years, like that's how much technology has gotten better. So in 1,000 years, it could be so good that we've already created
Yeah, we
a
can.
simulated world that we can't tell the difference from, or just a simulated world for our consciousness
Correct.
that we go to that. And when we wake up from this, we're in a different world. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like think about it. I feel like in the next couple hundred years, we could even like the Madden game. Like someone could go play quarterback or something. Like make it feel real.
Like they're moving, like they're actually doing the motions.
I feel
and
like
stuff.
in the next 100 years, we make.
If that's the case, why don't you just go play football? Because you can't get 22 people.
I know, but like maybe you're like, yeah, you're not that good, and you just want to have like make the feeling that you're good.
Yeah.
I would do it. I'd play. You wouldn't play as the Lions quarterback, Evan?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Take
that'd be
your
fun.
team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that'd be fun. But like, yeah, I get it. I was just fucking around. But so like the theory is that they've created a simulation that's so
They're doing like
Perfect.
an ancestry simulation. They're trying to figure out how they've come like this.
yeah.
And by then, they've like thought of a way like how they could like watch us evolve.
There's been, dude. Did you watch the show Devs? I
have
told you to
not.
fucking watch it.
I will watch
It's
it.
about that, dude. It's really fucking crazy. It's a good show. Nick Offerman's in it.
What's like the main? What's like the main?
That's what it's about. It's about it that they created a quantum computer that basically is like recreating it. It's like recreating reality as it happened, and it started from like the beginning, and it just like recreate. It's insane. It's a crazy show, and it's about like that computer and like what they're trying to do with it, and it's a really good show. I won't give any more away. I kind of gave away the twist of the first episode. You don't realize what it is, but
Yeah,
you figure that out by like episode 2. That's not that bad.
I mean, you're gonna get a lot of hate on Twitter. I'm sorry,
I
man.
should have said spoiler right there. I mean, you figure out what they're doing by like episode 2 or
Okay.
3. So come on, but
Perfect.
good show anyway. But it's about that. And like they created this quantum computer that basically it can basically like have a code for every single like atom that the Earth has ever had, basically, and they like recreate reality. It's insane.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And like, who's to say we have these quantum computers right now? You know what I mean? They can't quite do that yet, but
no,
like,
but like in a couple thousand of years, we don't know
dude,
what
if
we
you
can.
look into quantum computing, it's scary, dude. Like, it's crazy. Like, they can do some insane shit.
Wow.
With quantum computers. So like, how far off are we from being able to recreate a virtual world or a virtual reality? It's just trying to get it to where
Yeah,
you can feel the sensations and everything. That's a new level.
that's a new level. But GTA, like that's like a whole new world. Like we've already created that in like
Yeah.
30 years of like video games.
Elon Musk is creating. I mean, GTA is like, that's true. It's an open world, but it's not that big. It's not like the world. you know
No,
what I mean?
I'm just saying like
That's-
how we've
But
come.
I get
like,
what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah.
it's an open world concept, and like and what was I saying? Oh yeah, Elon Musk is already like creating the Neuralink that like they're about to start testing on people. I think pretty soon, where it's like a fucking like Neuralinks they insert in your brain, and it can make you like if you like are paralyzed in an arm, it can like cure that and like make it so you can move the arm. Like we can cure like crazy shit like that. So like, how far off are we from being able to put something in our head that like feels sensations and then
You want to be a star of a world
putting
somewhere.
ourselves
Yeah.
in a fucking virtual world, man?
Yeah.
If our brains can create dreams, there's got to be a way for us to like figure out how to do that and stimulate that, and then
Yeah, I'm gonna
eventually
get
figure
into
out how
that.
to control it, and then
Yeah.
eventually that's basically like, you know, who knows?
I mean,
maybe
really-
we're just brains in jars, dude,
Yeah.
sitting somewhere.
I mean, really, if you think about it, have you ever had like a dream where you thought like you're dreaming?
Yeah, lucid dream.
Yeah, I've done some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like It's because like you're
What
not,
if we could figure out how the brain did that and how to
Yeah.
like recreate that and like, dude, we're getting deep.
Yeah.
We're getting deep. This is some crazy shit here, but I love talking about it. Yeah, dude. Who knows, man? Who knows?
So like the two theories of why we wouldn't create like a simulation theory.
Why we wouldn't?
Yeah, why we wouldn't do it
Okay.
is why we either get extinct, like we never make it that far, we never get that technological advance, or we just never do it. It's like too dangerous, or we just don't want to do that. We don't want to create a simulation of
I don't
ancestry.
believe that at all. We're trying to do it right now. We're trying to figure it out now. So
Well, like
next-
maybe we have more compassion.
maybe we go extinct before, but who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, maybe we have more compassion. Have you ever seen the episode Black Mirror, the White Christmas
I
episode?
love that. Yeah, I love Black Mirror, dude. Great show.
Do you know the White Christmas episode?
Yeah.
Where like the guy, like they inject the girl with like something that it could like mind machine her house, like it can control her house, like her thing. They did it
You
so
don't say
right.
that better. Mind machine control house.
Did you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And like they take like her like a little consciousness, not consciousness, like what she like thinks,
Yeah.
and like put it in a machine.
Yeah.
And the machine thinks it's real, and like the guy
She thinks she's real in the machine,
Yeah.
and he basically has to like tell her like,
yeah,
this is your fucking life now. Like,
yeah, torture. So
Doesn't
like,
she like? And then it's forever, right? Like she
Yeah.
doesn't. Then she tries to like kill herself, but it won't happen.
it
And
won't
then
have. You can't sleep. You can't do it. And like she
Yeah.
banished her for like 6 months, dude.
To
Like,
her, it felt like 6 months,
Yeah,
but it was
it was
really
like-
like a second.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
So maybe we just have more compassion. Like we just don't do that.
But maybe we just don't do that. Like that's different than creating a virtual world.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, so the two hypothesis where we don't do that is
Yeah.
just because one, we go extinct before we have the chance to, and two, because
we just don't want to.
don't want to, which I don't believe that.
Or we just don't make it that realistic. Like we just don't make it that realistic. Where they think
I don't see that. I don't see that as happening. It looks like we're trying our hardest to make that kind of shit. You know, I mean, maybe once we get close to it, we start to realize and we start to think about like
Yeah.
what could happen. But who knows? I think we're gonna do it.
But so like the theory keeps going though,
Okay.
is that well then those are only two theories, but if we've done it, it's highly unlikely that we're living this through the first time.
Why?
Because they just say it's just like the possibility is just endless. Like we've probably like lived so many like this is definitely not the first time we've gone through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the probability is so low that we're living this.
But we can't remember anything from previous lives or anything if we have lived them. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying like ourselves like we're in the simulation, but like that we're living this through the first time as a species. Like this is actually the real timeline of us human beings is highly unlikely. So they're basically saying that this is like a simulate. That's why it's a simulation. It's highly unlikely that we're living this through the first time since what we've been capable of doing already.
Oh, I see what you're saying now.
So it's highly unlikely that these are the timeline that's actually happening right now. Like we probably lived this through like millions of years ago,
Wow.
and we're just a simulation going back.
It's so crazy, dude.
I hate to get this real philosophical on this podcast because just not us, but
This whole episode has been really just like deep and philosophical. Not deep, but like crazy and philosophical.
because like there's like just like all like kind of reality, like all kind of alternatives what this could be. But like it stems from like Plato and Democritus, two like Greek philosophers, and we all know who Plato was. He wrote Atlantis.
Yeah.
So one theory is that Democritus came up is that the reality like that we live in is made up by atoms, protons. Like the reality is perceived by our brain, and that's his theory that everything is real, that everything's real around us. And Plato's theory is more idealism that our brain perceives the reality. Our brain makes our reality.
Yeah.
So kind of like
so
what
like
dreams
the
are.
physical world is not necessarily like
Out there, it's what
there, it's our brains perceiving
It's
it.
our brains perceiving the physical world.
But what does his theory explain like where our brains are or like what we're doing?
No, but that's basically the concept of
Okay.
what
He
people are
didn't
trying
really
to
get into that. He just
Yeah.
said like
Our brain is the ones that
our
are
brain
making
is what's perceiving reality. So
Yeah.
it could be like Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not real what's around us.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at there. And then if you want to go back to like one of the evidence that they point to for this theory, if you want to go back to the Big Bang.
Okay.
So if you believe in the materials theory that Big Bang started everything, Big Bang started the universe.
Yeah.
But how did something start out of nothing?
Yeah. That's where shit gets crazy, man.
Yeah. And
like I don't understand that stuff enough though you know what I mean? Like
I don't either.
I don't understand how we started from nothing.
That's scientists has not solved that out. Like have solved
we've
that.
never been able to actually
how does something come from nothing? So, but if you believe the virtual theory is that it makes total sense because if you reboot a reality, if you create a reality, it starts from nothing and there was no time or anything before that.
Yeah.
Like you basically created that reality.
Yeah.
So it was a startup from a computer. And it also explains that if you do space and time, if you know how time goes, time can be dilated for if it goes faster, time slows down.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. That can also be done by a virtual word finite processor inside a computer. So that's what kind of happens when you make a reality because something that speeds up is actually slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
Very philosophical. I can't explain it too hard because
it's super scientific too. It's very physics heavy, and I'm not really smart in that area.
Right.
But yeah, I know that if you're going faster than the speed of light, then your time slows down, right?
Yeah. So that's another thing. That's another thing that people point to, that this is a simulation theory, because in a virtual world, you would have there'd be something that the speed, something the computer couldn't process. There'd be a limit to what the computer could process.
Okay.
So there'd be a speed limit.
That's kind of what it's like. Stuff slows down if
there's a speed limit.
Yeah.
And you'd find that in a virtual processor as well.
Could you imagine the kind of processor you would need to have an entire world created? Here's another question. Do we think that this reality, this simulation that we're living through is individual, or do you think that all of us are different people being simulated simultaneously?
So you're going.
Are you real, bro? Are you even real? Because maybe this is my simulation and none of you are real. You're all fucking just simulated in my head.
I wish I knew that. But do you know what kind of life I would have?
Are you real, bro? I don't know, man. But yeah, I wonder.
You know what kind of life I'd be living right now if I knew everything else was a simulation.
No one was real. Nobody else is real, man. That's where we're at. Yeah, I mean, did any of them get into that?
Yeah. I have to find. All right, so if you want to go into another theory, evidence of why it's real, you have to go by James Gate, and he says he can find computer code in the dirt.
Yeah, that's that mathematician, right?
Yeah. So he says it's written the equations that you can find in the dirt. Again,
there's equations in nature.
Yeah.
Like equations for nature that you can observe, and you can discover these equations that just
in nature
govern nature. And in some of those equations, it starts to look like computer code, right?
Right, and it looks like zeros and ones. He explains.
Yeah.
And it says it's computer code for the Milky Way, how that all works.
Yeah, he's been talking about this for. He came up with this in 2012-ish, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. I tried to listen to a podcast or a speech that he gave where he talked about it, and he lost me real quick.
Yeah, I can't really explain it either.
Yeah, he lost me real quick, but I believe him. I trust him. He's a smart motherfucker. But yeah, it's just how the way nature works. You can kind of put that into equations, put them into math, and he does that because he's really smart. And he figured out that the equations really look kind of like computer code equations.
This was back in 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, so it hasn't been a theory, or he discovered it back then, like those equations. So like, I hope he's still looking into that. I hope he's still I'm sure he is.
Yeah,
right?
but like, how could we ever prove it? Like, I feel like our
Yeah,
creators
there's-
want to prove. Like,
There's no way you could ever prove it, but
there's Bell's theory where they've done like some tests on like photons and neutrons that go through like small spaces, and like how they react is not how we expect them to react.
yeah,
They kind of go very deep and explain it like in very scientific terms. But basically, what they found out from these experiments is when you look at something, you perceive it different. Like it goes one, like the photons, neutrons react a certain way, but if you don't observe, they react totally different.
yeah,
So like my phone, like we're both looking at it, it sees one way, but if we're not,
yeah. I mean, yeah, they have done some like experiments with that where they say like anatomically things change so quickly, and like when you're observing something, like it acts differently. So they're trying to say like that's like when no one's looking, the computer doesn't need to be processing that, right?
right?
So that's why. That's crazy.
Yeah. So Einstein was trying to disprove that like this world is materialistic, and he says there's too many spontaneous interactions that like happen for this to be like some kind of simulation. But somehow or not, they've like disproved that. They found like tiny like little, if you break atoms down and stuff, they look like pixels, kind of like computer pixels.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like that's kind of part of the theory, right? That like basically every single atom is like a piece of the code, and that's how you put the reality together, right? That's how
Right.
you create the reality, is you, like in that show, like in Devs, like they have this quantum computer that can just literally like there's a code for every single atom.
Right. And they also explain like
And atoms act really crazy, really strangely. So that, that's something that we attribute to possibly being a computer code. Who knows?
right.
That's how you would have to do it. If you're going to create a reality, you would have to like do it on the anatomical level for it to be this real.
Correct. They also say like space,
Space ain't real.
like well, let's get into that.
Well, if reality isn't real, then space isn't real.
Yeah, well, they're saying like dark matter, we can't prove that exists.
Yeah.
It could be that the distance is all just relative to like the processor of the computer. Like we just perceive the distance, but it could be not that far away.
Yeah.
It's all just made and like the indents. They also said how like the moon is so perfectly aligned with the planet Earth that
Yeah.
it's created. If you get into that,
Yeah. Yeah, the moon, there's a lot of like things about the moon that are just happen to be perfect, like very coincidental. But I mean,
that's like I know.
now we're getting into like whack job shit. Now we're getting into flat earth shit over here.
No, that's just like a theory that they.
But I get that.
Yeah.
Like, so with simulation theory, like, a lot of people say that we're not that far off from being able to create computers that have that, you know what I mean? That have the processing power to do that. So yeah, we're not really that far off from being able to compute
Yes.
insanely complex things like that. And the way that we're trying to do that is through quantum computing. Now, quantum computing is crazy.
It's deep.
You need a very, very deep understanding of physics to be able to like really understand.
Yeah, we're
but,
gonna
like,
break it down for you. Got another 2.5 hours here, so
we'll
take
break
it away.
we'll break it down in like layman's terms. So with quantum computing, it's like basically a normal computer reads everything through ones and zeros, and a quantum computer can be combinations of 1 and 0 at the same time. It can kind of be like anywhere in between 1 and 0. So that just opens up so many more possibilities, and it allows the computers to be able to like do insanely complex calculations and stuff so fast. Like the calculation that it would take our best supercomputer that we have today, it would take it 10,000 years to compute this calculation, and a quantum computer would do it in about 3 minutes.
We think, yeah.
That's how much more powerful a quantum computer is. And it uses qubits instead of bits like computers use, where it's like a bit is just something that says either 1 or 0. It uses qubits, and qubits can, like we said, be all kinds of combinations in between there. So it can have so many different more possibilities. And I mean, the like, this is the most physics I can get into here, is that it works off of the idea of entanglement, which we really don't understand how entanglement,
right.
Like we don't fully understand entanglement, but we can observe it and we know it works. But it's basically that like protons and stuff can transfer, I think it's photons. Photons can transfer information between each other
at an
extremely fast speed, at like almost instantaneously and over crazy distances. So we're using that. We don't know how that works, but like we don't even understand that. But we're using the fact that that's a fact to create these quantum computers. And man, it's like I think they said it would take 20 qubits to be able to compute every single atom in the universe.
That's crazy.
Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about with simulation theory.
Yeah.
Is that we've created these quantum computers already, and we're just in the simulation right now. Yeah. We don't know it.
Well, maybe you never know. It could be like Inception, in a simulation of a simulation of a simulation.
That's dreams in Inception. Yeah, they're like, we're in a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream. Yeah, no. What if we get there? What if we create quantum computers and we're actually in a simulation run by quantum computers, and then we get inside a simulation inside a simulation?
It's just an ever-going simulation.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we get real deep. But yeah, so quantum computers is what's allowing us to have that type of thing in sight. You know what I mean? And we're not that far off. You know, I think that there's still some physics issues, because when you get down to the quantum level, like we kind of talked about earlier, like photons and electrons and all that, when you get down to that quantum level, they act so strangely, and they do.
We still can't understand
things. If any sort of interference goes on apparently with these quantum computers, like, because they're using so many like photons to like transfer all this information and like all these different qubits, and apparently if like any sort of interference happens, it ruins everything. I don't know.
You'd have to have a backup. You'd have to have a backup thing.
Yeah, so we're running simulations on like supercomputers that we have right now about what quantum computers would do, which is kind of crazy. I don't understand how that works either, but and they're calculating that we will achieve quantum supremacy like pretty quickly if we can get. I'm not quite sure what is standing in our way right now. They didn't really explain that very much.
They said like how it all interacts together.
Just the way that just like things on the quantum level are so loopy that we can't like
we can't make them. We can't control it. Or
I see. We can't control it yet. Could you imagine just 20 qubits would be able to calculate every single atom?
We could find out our biggest. Like what we're looking for, like our biggest mysteries.
I mean, with quantum computers, like essentially what you could do, you could have a computer run simulations on anything. Like they're saying you could have computer run simulations on like financial stuff, and it would be able to come up with so many possibilities and so many simulations that you could sort of predict the future. You know,
right.
like they're saying that quantum computers could end up fucking telling us the future, you know, like, because it can calculate so many different scenarios and so many different options that you're basically like seeing into the future. Like if it could calculate so many different scenarios that like billions and billions and trillions of scenarios. So you would know almost exactly like if this one person put his money here, how that would change everything. If this one person did
You'd
this, how
have
that would
access
change
to all of
everything.
our information.
And
Yeah.
and you would have so much. You could see into the future, man.
You know, maybe this is what this is right now. Maybe this is an experiment. Maybe someone right now is putting a little coronavirus, like say, like how would the world
Maybe 2020
react
is like
in?
they're checking out like different scenarios.
Yeah, it's like how would the world
all
react
of
to
them,
this?
all the scenarios.
Yeah, it's like maybe they're just like bored. Like, all right, people are kind of like bored. Like, let's kind of spice things up a little.
Yeah, all the scenarios, man. Yeah, I mean, and then there's also some scary things to that. Like, if someone has access to a quantum computer, they could break codes and you know what I mean? Figure out like a quantum computer could just like try every possible combination of password that anything could be and probably figure it out in like within 10 minutes. You know what I mean? You could crack all our passwords, all that kind of stuff. So they're worried about the security of it and how, I mean, at this point, I think like quantum computers are so advanced and it takes so much money to create them that you almost need to have like government backing or something to be able to create it. So at this point, they're not worried about it getting into like the wrong hands, but eventually, you know, like eventually, maybe 150 years from now, quantum computers have just replaced regular computers and we all have them in our house. Then like,
Yeah.
you know, but I think that by then they'd figure out securities, like ways for,
It's like a
you
supercharged
have to have a
Alexa.
password that changes like every 5 seconds or so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'd figure out some crazy way to keep it secure by that time. But yeah, it's insane, dude. Quantum computing. And that's basically like, if you buy into simulation theory from the perspective that we are in a computer simulation right now, kind of like what James Gunn was trying to say, that kind of thing, then it would be, you'd be able to say, well, look, we've already theoretically figured out a computer that can do that. We've already theoretically figured out that all we need is 20 qubits to be able to calculate every single atom in the entire universe. So like, it's a possibility that we've done that and we're in it right now.
Yeah.
So one thing like about simulation theory is we're like, you kind of have to assume that eventually we'll be able to simulate consciousness.
Yeah. Replicate it, code it.
Yeah, replicate consciousness. And to be honest, we don't really understand what consciousness even is.
Right.
I think the best like explanation we have is like neurons and synapses firing in our brain, like through electrical pulses that, you know, compute things in a way. If you want to put it that way, our brains, you know, we go through different, like, you know, questions. Like our brains can compute things so quickly. Like there's like 10 to the like 3 power E, like an insane huge fucking number per second that our brains can compute. And it's like,
you know, like a computer that could compute all these things and like not just you, like everybody else inside that simulation too.
Yeah. Which is right now like impossible.
Our
and
current
pretty
understanding,
far
we
off.
can't do it.
Yeah.
And our current understanding, it's impossible. With who knows what we know. They say like all decisions that would have to be made are more than there are stars in the universe, which is
a
lot. But it just gets you thinking, Evan. Maybe we're just code.
Yeah, you know, what is consciousness? We don't really understand it. You know, we don't know what that means. So it's.
But they're saying if we are able to create it, we probably created millions of worlds already that could simulate all sorts of things.
They're assuming that we eventually figure out a way to create it quickly and easily. Like right now, it's taken us years and years to figure out. Maybe they're saying that like once we crack the code, all the parts and stuff are really simple, so we could make them really easily. But like, it's taken us a long time just to figure out how to create the first one. You know, I'm sure that the parts and getting all those like qubits and creating, you know what I mean? I'm sure it's not like an instantaneous thing. I don't really know.
Think there are any glitches if we're in a simulation?
That's the thing. They've done a good job. You know what? people have talked about there's, glitches in the simulation, man. Like they see deja vu, like when you see the same thing a couple times, it's like, oh, that's a glitch. But as far as like actual like glitches, like they done a good fucking job. I haven't noticed any, you know what I mean? Like there's not
no
a
building,
dude
no
walking down the
building.
street
It's
is just like fucking stuck, like can't, you know what I mean? There's no.
Dude, that'd be weird. Could you just imagine like something just like froze just like for a second and like they're back to normal?
Yeah, dudes like people walking on the street just kind of like skipping through like space time. It's like because the computer's glitching. I don't know. I've never seen anything like that happen. So
yeah,
I definitely had some like deja vu, where you see like, oh man, like that's exactly like what I saw like earlier today. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. But it's not. I don't know. Nothing like provable. That's like. This is a glitch in the computer simulation.
That's the thing. That's the thing with Mystery Bros. We're not going to be able to prove this.
Yeah, not now. At least once we create the technology, then we can probably prove it or disprove it. But
yeah, I mean, there's like even like, have you heard theories of like we can upload our consciousness into like robots and live forever?
Yeah. But we can't actually do that. Yeah.
No, but that's like a theory.
Yeah.
So it's like possible that we could just one day just create it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But we got to do that first. We haven't been able to map out the human brain.
It's not going to happen anytime soon. This has to be like millions of years. Like if humans survive for like millions of years.
Our brains are so complex and there's so many different synapses and neurons and stuff that we don't have the current computing power to be able to like map out our brains. We haven't been able to do that yet.
No.
So, but I think that, man, once we do, we're getting into some shady, like dangerous territory. You know what I mean? Once we've mapped out the human brain, what if we can build a human brain? That's what fucking Elon Musk is, I think, like trying to do with that like Neuralink thing. He's trying to like be able to like access parts of our brains that for some reason some people can't, or some, you know what I mean? Or like that had some damage maybe. Like they're trying to find out like if someone's blind and they put like a Neuralink in, they can like, the Neuralink can like activate like parts of your brain that like see, and then you can see again.
Could you imagine someone who's never seen it in their life also could just see?
Yeah, that's insane. They're also saying like you'll be able to like control like computers and stuff with your mind. Like you'll be able to just like.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
What if there's a glitch? What if someone can hack my like thing?
What if our brains get hacked?
Someone just control me? Can someone just go like, hey, look, I can control Evan right now?
I don't know, man. I mean, this one, we're definitely going off the deep end with this episode here, with this part. Like we are getting very like hypothetical and very, woo woo, if you want to call it that.
It's just different than what we usually do.
To think about and really interesting to talk about. It's. I don't fully understand it, but I get it. I get what it could do. I get that kind of stuff. I just don't quite fully understand. I'm not a physicist. I don't get how we're doing it, but I get that it can be done, and it's really interesting to think about. To like hypothesize about what could really happen. All the possibilities.
Makes us question everything.
Right? If we create a computer that can like basically tell us the future in every type of scenario, like what do we do with that? What kind of like...
What if there's just a grim ending? What if it just shows us like, no matter what, you guys are going to go extinct?
Probably the case. It's crazy, dude.
It's crazy.
It's fucking crazy. It's like a computer that can just play out so many different scenarios that it knows everything. It's insane.
Yeah, maybe there's a scenario where there's no weird 2020. There's like a different simulation where life's just normal.
We could also like rerun the past. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we can figure out exactly how
The
things
pyramids were
happened in
built,
the past.
yeah.
You know?
How would we know? How would the computer know how to? How we like evolved?
I don't know. It would just go through so many like scenarios that we would have to like find one that looks a lot like what, you know what I mean? We'd go through like a scenario that it's like, okay, here's the pyramids in this scenario that they're exactly like the pyramids here. So how did they do it in this scenario? You know, how did it happen in this? Just kind of go off of that. And it'd be like, almost like you could figure things out from the past.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. In the very same way you could predict the future or create the future, dude. You could like look at so many different scenarios. You could say, I want, you know, to have this in life and this in life and this and then blah, blah. And it would just tell you exactly what you had to do that, to get to that scenario, because it can find the one scenario that has all those things. And then it shows you
Right.
how that works. And it's like you're eliminating free will in a way. Like you're kind of, you know, like we get, this just gets so deep. It gets so interesting.
Evan, like, we could be paying right now for like entertainment. This could just all be like just some show that we just paid for our life.
Like we could be like, we could be going the Rick and Morty route where it's like we're in a video game right now that someone is just playing and we're not even real. Like we're just, all this is simulated and we're living a simulated life, and then it's over and we go, on to the next one, or back to real life. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Oh, gotta go grocery shopping. Thank you.
What if you live out something that in our mind it feels like it's 100 years, and then you get done and you're just some other being in another planet somewhere, like in a simulation, and you're like, oh, got to get back to school tomorrow or something. You know what I mean?
That was fun.
Yeah, like who knows, dude? Who knows?
Who knows?
And what if it's the year, 20 million, and in real life, and we've already created so many quantum computers and so many simulations that you can just hop into simulations wherever you want and do different things, man. It's insane. There's that route where it's like there's just all kinds of different simulations you can do, or there's a route where it's like the Earth is just all fucked up, so we all jump into simulations to like escape from it. You know what I mean?
Our brains are just connected to like a huge computer.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's just so much, and I think that the thing that James Gates is doing is really interesting. How he's finding that kind of stuff in the universe and like within the nature and stuff. It's like that's like that almost is like, how is that possible in nature? But I don't know.
Or like how things behave differently when we observe it, and when we don't, it behaves a different way.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing as well. The way that works, the way how on a quantum level things behave differently based on whether we're observing it or not. Because it's like that's almost like, okay, that's the computer's not processing that right now. It doesn't need to, because it's not part of your world right now. You know what I mean? Again, we go back to Rick and Morty, like, in the simulation episode where it's like they create that
We did not get our evidence from Rick and Morty.
No. But they do a good job of kind of like explaining and how like they create that simulation for them, and it's like it's rendering itself as they're moving and stuff. It's like that, so it doesn't need to simulate the entire world simultaneously. Yeah. It just needs to simulate what you're seeing and what the person's doing.
Which is basically like, are you real, Evan? Am I just like the one in the simulation right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm real. I don't know if you're real. Yeah, dude, I don't know. It's just simulation theory is crazy. I know we got a little deep and like woo-woo and crazy there, but it's just stuff to think about.
Right.
Our next episode, we're going to talk about the Tylenol murders. They were a string of murders that happened back in the 80s. And, it was
a big story.
Yeah, it was a big story. It was a national thing.
People were afraid. People were calling poison control out of control.
Absolutely, yeah. It's crazy. So We're gonna get into that next week. We may or may not need a quickie on that one. We'll see. I'm thinking maybe we'll do like Alan Hill's 84001 or something like that as a quickie. But yeah, so this episode was fun.
Got philosophical.
We got real deep there. We got real deep and crazy, and learned some cool shit about Easter Island. So yeah, that was a good one. But yeah, so Tylenol murders next week. And then maybe something else. But yeah, so thank you guys for listening, and peace out.
Peace.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery
Mystery Brothers.
Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery
Mystery
Brothers.
Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.